Mr. Graves met her gaze, his expression unreadable in the flickering light. S3 as Mr. Graves. No one listens, not until it's too late. He pulled out a heavy, rusted key. S3 as Mr. Graves. The basement. We can trap it. Are you with me? Mia looked from the key to Mr. Graves. They had no other choice. They were hunted by something ancient and evil. She took a deep breath. We're with you. It was time to face their fears.
The steps leading down into the basement were narrow and steep, the wooden stairs creaking ominously beneath their weight. Mia gripped the rusted key in her hand, its cold metal offering a meagre sense of security. The air grew colder as they descended, heavy with the smell of damp earth. Something ancient and metallic sent a shiver down her spine. Mr. Graves led the way, his flashlight cutting a narrow beam through the darkness. Jason followed close behind, his eyes darting nervously around the stairwell. His hand brushed against the rough stone wall.
Where are we going? What's down here?
He didn't really want to know the answer. What awaited them in the depths of the school basement?
The old boiler room. It's been sealed off for years. Forgotten, most of it anyway.
The steps leading down into the basement were narrow and steep, the wooden stairs creaking ominously beneath their weight. Mia gripped the rusted key in her hand, its cold metal offering a meagre sense of security. The air grew colder as they descended, heavy with the smell of damp earth. Something ancient and metallic sent a shiver down her spine. Mr. Graves led the way, his flashlight cutting a narrow beam through the darkness. Jason followed close behind, his eyes darting nervously around the stairwell. His hand brushed against the rough stone wall.
Where are we going? What's down here?
He didn't really want to know the answer. What awaited them in the depths of the school basement?
The old boiler room. It's been sealed off for years. Forgotten, most of it anyway.
Why do so many people fear the unknown? Mr. Graves pushed open a heavy metal door, the hinges groaning in protest. The air was thick with the smell of rust and decay. Mia coughed, covering her mouth. The flashlight beam revealed a cavernous space filled with hulking shadows. Pipes snaked along the walls like monstrous tentacles. The floor was littered with debris.
This place shouldn't exist.
Her voice was barely audible above the drip, drip, drip of water. The air hung heavy, pregnant with a sense of wrongness.
It doesn't, not anymore, not for us.
He moved further into the room, his flashlight beam dancing across the walls.
Mia's gaze followed the beam, heart pounding as shadows shifted. Jason whispered, "There!" pointing with a trembling finger.
Mia nodded, breath catching. The shadow stood tall. It turned towards them, grotesque curiosity.
The light! Mr. Graves roared. Mia slammed the switch. The lights flickered to life, bathing the room in harsh glare.
The sudden illumination was blinding. Mia shielded her eyes, adjusting to the harsh glare. The shadows recoiled, dissolving into the light.
A faint shimmering remained, a distortion in the air, the screech cut off, replaced by a guttural growl.
It's trapped, Mr. Graves said, his voice tight with exertion. The light, it can't stand the light.
Mia stared at the shimmering distortion, her heart pounding. The air crackled with a strange energy. The shadow might be trapped, but it was biding its time.
They made their way back to the janitor's closet in silence, the oppressive atmosphere clinging to them. The flickering lights cast long, distorted shadows that danced at the edges of their vision. Mr. Graves, pale and drawn, sank into his chair, his gaze fixed on the monitors.
"Is it over?" Mia asked, her voice barely a whisper.
For now, Mr. Graves replied, his voice heavy with weariness.
The soft glow of the fireplace cast a warm, inviting light across the living room, illuminating the worn, familiar furniture and the faded floral patterns of the wallpaper. Oliver, perched on the edge of the worn sofa, turned the brittle pages of the old photo album, his brow furrowed in concentration. Grandma June, her silver hair shimmering in the firelight, peered over his shoulder, her voice a soft murmur as she pointed out familiar faces. He felt a pang of sadness, realizing how much he had forgotten, a prickle of unease that sent a shiver down his spine.
You were such a sweet boy, Grandma June chuckled. Always so full of energy. Her eyes twinkled.
He turned the page to a photo of himself at 6. The swing set loomed. It was a happy memory, but something seemed off. He squinted closer. There at the edge was a man, tall and slender. Oliver felt watched. "Who's that?" Oliver asked, his voice barely a whisper.
Grandma June peered at the image. She murmured. I don't rightly recall. A neighbor, perhaps.
Oliver wasn't convinced. He flipped through the pages, unease growing. The man, always in the background, appeared in photograph after photograph. In one photograph, the man stood just outside the back door. In another, he lurked at the edge of the crowd. "He's in all of these," Oliver said, his voice tight with dread. "Who is he, Grandma? Why is he always watching us?" "Grandma June, look at this. Do you see him?"
Or maybe an old friend.
But her words rang hollow to her own ears.
Oh, Oliver, you have such an overactive imagination. But even I can't deny this feeling.
She flipped through the album, her gaze drawn to the blurred figure. His eyes seemed to follow her. With each photograph, the man got closer, the details of his face slowly resolving. At first he was a distant figure, but as the years progressed, he inched closer, more difficult to ignore.
It's strange.
Grandma June murmured, tracing the man's form in the photograph. He stood behind a 10-year-old Oliver, his hand near the boy's shoulder. His face, though still blurred, held a chilling expression, a fear she hadn't felt since childhood. Oliver felt a cold dread. He pointed to the final photograph. It was a recent picture of Oliver.
This wasn't here before."
He whispered, barely audible. The spectral stalker was real.
Oliver's hands trembled as he reached for his phone, the cold metal a stark contrast to the sudden heat beneath his skin. He felt a strange disconnect, a sense of unreality that pervaded the room like a thick fog. It was as if he were watching himself from a distance, his movements detached and mechanical. He opened the camera app, the familiar interface a jarring intrusion. The soft glow of the screen illuminated his face, highlighting the fear in his eyes. He needed proof, some tangible evidence to ground him in reality. The camera offered a semblance of control, a way to impose order on the chaos. His finger hovered over the shutter button, the air thick with anticipation. He took a deep breath and pressed the button. The shutter clicked, the sound unnaturally loud in the sudden silence. The photograph on his phone mirrored the album, but the man was gone. The spot behind him was empty. No trace, no shadow. Oliver's mind reeled, struggling to reconcile. The room seemed to contract around me, the air growing heavy and oppressive, the comforting warmth of the fireplace replaced by an icy chill. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest, a frantic drumbeat against the silence. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. I needed to get out of the room, to escape the suffocating atmosphere. It was the sound of a floorboard creaking. I froze, my breath catching. Alone in the house with my grandmother, there shouldn't be anyone else. I turned, scanning the corners. The air hung heavy, cold sweat prickled my skin, then a whisper, "Don't turn around." The words, spoken with eerie calmness, froze me. I wanted to confront the voice, but instinct screamed to remain still. My heart pounded, breath shallow. Cold breath on my neck sent shivers. Then, the unmistakable click of a camera.
The living room, once warm, now felt cold and alien, shadows stretching in the flickering light. The photo album lay open, its pages fluttering as if disturbed by an unseen breeze. A single Polaroid lay face down on the worn rug, evidence of the horror that had unfolded. As the last embers faded into darkness, a whisper echoed, a chilling reminder that some things are best left forgotten.